Hello everybody, welcome back to Inside Man United. My name is Rowan Brennan. Thank you very much for joining me once again. And it is the news for January, Wednesday, the 10th. And there's no shortage of news coming out of this club. And we're going to get into the headlines very, very shortly. But first, the Wigan game. Haven't really given much of a reaction to that game. Pretty dull, not inspiring. I'm quite disappointed that Ten Hag didn't play more youth players. I think the senior players failed to inspire. We had 30 shots, but I don't think any of them were truly convincing. Yes, we hit the woodwork. Scott McTominay had the most amount of shots out of the entire team, which is just wrong. Højlund, yeah, scuffed a couple of chances, but it's gas. So I was watching the match and my partner was beside me, and she, Brazilian girl, doesn't follow football a lot, but you know, she'll be on her phone usually beside me on the couch if I'm at home watching a match, and she saw like 4 United players scrambling in the Wigan box trying to get a shot off, and just it looked like hot potato. And she was like, oh my God, what are those guys' problem? Why can't they just put it in the net? And she's like, which is your team, babe? And I'm like, that one. She was like, what is going on there? And it was just funny, just even from a complete unknown perspective. Someone who didn't know the team, didn't know what was going on, was still looking at our forward line and going, what the fuck is going on there? And it was just poor. United's front line failing to inspire once again. Bruno, I mean, there's all these stats that I see consistently. Oh, Bruno, he's the biggest chance creator across the 5 leagues. And like, there's very staunch defenders of Bruno, and I get it. But we haven't seen the Bruno of 3-4 years ago in the last kind of couple of years. He hasn't been great. And he's a huge risk. If he's not doing, he's like Rashford. If Rashford doesn't score, he's not doing anything. He doesn't do anything else. He doesn't track back. He doesn't really beat a man. He doesn't lay stuff off. He doesn't assist. And if he's not banging in goals, he doesn't really affect games all that much. And you need more from your wide players or your forward players. Bruno, he just hasn't been good this season, and he wasn't great for large parts of last season either. 8 goals, 8 assists last season, I believe. Not great for your most creative outlet for United. So, I mean, Garnacho, we're looking at the likes of Garnacho and Manu and thinking, you know, we're relying on an 18-year-old to be our best midfielder, and he is, which is shocking. And then we're expecting Garnacho to kind of show us brilliance every game and bail us out like he did in that game against Fulham and other matches that we've seen. He's a 20-year-old kid. He should be looking around for inspiration, not the one providing it. It's wrong for a club of Manchester United size to be relying so heavily on children. They're kids. So, yeah, a very uninspiring performance. The Scott McTominay experiment needs to stop, and I hope it does. I hope he's gone in the winter, and we replace him. And I mean, the Rashford, as soon as Mount is fully fit, he needs to come in on the left. I mean, despite people's feelings about Mount, I'm not a big fan of his, but we need to drop Rashford. He's had 9 years to, you know, cement his place, and he's given us 2 seasons where he scored 17 goals, 2 other seasons where he scored 10 and 11. He's hit double figures 4 times. This is his 9th season, and he's just not good enough. He's been given long enough, and it's just not good enough. And we've bought Mason Mount for 55 million quid. He has done very good things at Chelsea. I'm not a big fan of his, but he hasn't been given a proper chance. He's been injured. He hasn't been played in his proper position. And he always plays left or centre with Chelsea. And, you know, there should be a little bit of an audition happening for that left-hand side. I mean, you know, were it not for the poor form of that right-hand side, Garnacho would be playing ahead of Rashford and someone else had they staked a claim on that right-hand side. Rashford would be on the bench right now if Garnacho stayed left and we had someone decent on the right. Now, Garnacho's actually playing better on the right through there being not really many better options out there, and he's actually kind of found himself a little bit of a role, and I'm glad to see a winger playing on the same side as his strongest foot for a change. This inversion stuff is killing Højlund, and he's not getting enough chances. But anyway, listen, it was 2-0, job done, no injuries. I'd like to have seen a few more young players getting a run out. But listen, without further ado, let's get into the headlines and see what news we have today. Today's headlines. Borussia Dortmund CEO Hans-Joachim Watzke has his say on the Jadon Sancho transfer. United youngster Isaac Hansen-Aaroen set to quit United over frustration of a lack of first-team opportunities. Facundo Pellistri could find himself the subject of a bid from the Eredivisie. And United in advanced negotiations to sign centre-back from Serie A. Ineos set to make an approach for Alex Ferguson's old CEO, David Gill. And United move to sign Amadou Onana from Everton, with Arsenal and Madrid also circling. And finally, the wait is over. Anthony Martial's time at United looks to be over, with a £7 million bid coming in from Fenerbahce to beat a Serie A rival. All that coming up. So we kick off today's headlines with an article from United in Focus regarding Borussia Dortmund CEO Hans-Joachim Watzke. Dortmund have had all sorts of drama this year. There was like a coup apparently against, was it the manager or CEO, Marco Reus, being accused of leading that. So they're going through their own bit of a circus at the moment as well. But Borussia Dortmund are cautiously optimistic that Jadon Sancho, the deal will go through. And he goes on to say that he's confident, he's cautiously optimistic. So he says here via Yahoo Sport, suggesting that it's an issue in the Red Devils camp, which is holding up the deal. We want him to join us, but we are not yet at the stage where we can announce results. We're not announcing any progress reports. The problem is no longer with us. We are in good dialogue with Manchester United. So odd words. Maybe there's a translation issue there. Is there a problem at all? Was the problem with you? Why is it now with United? But it's probably just the issue is with United. They're the ones that need to kind of iron things out with the player, I'm sure. So Sancho joined United in a £73 million deal during the summer 2021. We know all this. He's very talented. I would be extremely happy if he returned. Dortmund midfielder Emre Can tells Sky Germany, and I believe that if he comes, he will help us. Of course he will. So a little bit of I suppose just delays with this, where people are kind of just wanting it to get done, and it's one of these stories that's probably going to circle for another week. Of course, with Dortmund wanting Sancho to make the warm weather training that they are doing in Marbella, that looks to have been delayed as well. But again, I don't think United are going to be in a rush to allow Sancho get his Havaianas on him and be walking up and down the beaches of Marbella just yet. So they got to make sure the deal is right, and I'm sure it will be. So just a matter of time. So yeah, the beginning of a cull, it would seem, of highly paid underperforming stars at United, with talk about Anthony Martial coming up at the end of the show. So we follow on to one Mr. Isaac Hansen-Aaroen, a very talented player who's been compared naturally to Odegaard, given where they're from and their background, the style of play that they have, but a very good footballer. But I mean, I have to admit, listen, I get it. The likes of Bellingham and Sancho and other not English players, but players that have been playing English teams that are struggling to break into the first teams of, the better Premier League teams. It's completely unrealistic for any 19-year-old or 20 or even 21-year-old to expect to be able to just walk in and start at Manchester United. Even Mason Greenwood, who is undoubtedly one of the most talented players we've had at the academy for he could be generational. He could be the best player we've ever produced from that academy if he goes on to play at United. But wherever he plays, he's still going to be one of the best players the academy has ever produced. Even at 20 years of age, he was in and out of the team. Yes, he was getting starts, but Aaronson, obviously he hasn't gotten any minutes, so obviously that's going to be quite discouraging. But for any 19-year-old to expect to be able to get into the first team, I get it, but I don't think he's one of those players. I don't think he has delusions of grandeur that he should be starting for Manchester United. But when you see the likes of Jude Bellingham and you see Jadon Sancho and other players that have gone overseas to get their start in a first team, in a developing team, it's kind of good for the game, because these young players get to blossom and flower early instead of having to wait till they're like 22 or 23 to break in to the first team of the club they're at, which was so often the case in the 90s and early 2000s and even into the 2010s. So now you're seeing players, getting a chance to play first team football in La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie A, and starting week in, week out. And if they're good enough, they can really add a lot of goals and assists and talent or whatever position they play for the teams that receive them. And it increases their value, even if they go on a loan. It works for all parties. So Bellingham and Sancho really kind of setting a trend for young players, I believe. And they're not afraid to go overseas. They're not afraid to leave, Manchester United not having that crest on their chest, which was so difficult for players to kind of let go of the club. But I think now, if you believe you're good enough, you're going to get opportunities elsewhere. And if you are as good as you think you are, you'll probably be a first-team player from the age of 2021 if you can do what's required at a smaller team or at a smaller league. So he's set to become a free agent in the summer of 2024, and as such, United are kind of probably set to lose him if he doesn't get more minutes. Now, if anything, this is why I think Ten Hag, should have been playing some of the younger players. Like, if you want to keep this guy, you should be playing him against Wigan. You need to be starting him, or at least giving him minutes once we're 2-0 up. And he wasn't even on the bench. So are United happy to see the back of him? I mean, this is another player that, could really develop into something. So he'd love to make things work at United. He does want to stay, but he is understood to feel frustrated by the lack of first-team opportunities, which is fair enough. MEN, Manchester Evening News, understands United want the Norwegian teenager to sign a new 4.5-year deal, but the terms offered so far don't come close to the packages he could expect to receive elsewhere. So he's going to be getting first-team offers from clubs that can offer him first-team football. And obviously, if that's not going to be the case at United, the terms aren't going to be favourable, and you can't have a kid in your reserves on 30 grand a week, 40 grand a week, or whatever it is he could get. So, I mean, the opportunity to play at Ajax or Atletico Madrid, Napoli, these are teams that are showing interest in him. It's hard to turn that down. So it'd be sad for United to see him go. But again, it happened with City with Jadon Sancho. I'm not going to get the opportunity that I need here. He goes on to bigger and better things, gets his move, but, remains to be seen what happens with that individual. We go on to the Sun here. There's plenty of other places reporting on this, but I just decided to go with the Sun. So ready to go, United outcast. I suppose he is an outcast. He just has not been getting the minutes that he deserves in a position that has been crying out for someone to make it their own. But it looks like Garnacho has nailed that down. And PSV Eindhoven reportedly formalizing their interest in Facundo Pellistri. It's really interesting to see what's happening at United now, because there's talk of a lot of transfers coming into United during January at a time when maybe funds weren't available. But when you've got Jadon Sancho's wages off your books, or half of them off your books, that's like 150 grand wiped off. You might get 10, 15 million for Pellistri. Then you start looking at maybe the likes of Casemiro and Varane. I mean, they alone are commanding around 2 or 3 million a month. So, I mean, that's 15 to 18 million, coming straight off your wages between now and the summer. You've now just racked up 30, 40 million quid. Then if you kind of throw in a couple of transfer fees, United could really kind of stuff their pockets with some cash just by shedding fat. And it's known Ineos want to get rid of all the underperforming, overly inflated wages off the wage bill. And, Anthony Martial is going to become a part of that as well. And we're going to get into that later on the show. So, yeah, the Uruguayan star struggled to impress Ten Hag, who's decided to let the winger go. It's unfortunate. I think a lot of people were really hopeful for him. The same has happened with Alvaro Fernandez. I think he's with Girona, and he seems to be doing really well over in La Liga. And I think a lot of United fans would like to see him try and stake a claim for a left-back position. It was a real shame that we were faffing around looking at Reguilon, whom I liked and I thought could have had a future at United, certainly ahead of Malacia. But Alvaro Fernandez gets loaned out, and then all of a sudden we've no left-backs. We have to bring in Reguilon. It's like, Jesus, man, if ever there was a chance for that kid to come in and do something. Apparently he's doing very well at Girona. Pellistri 22 has never come close to a regular run for the Red Devils. I mean, it looked like he could kind of burst onto the scene, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. I don't know what the amount exactly is that's going to be coming in. It could be a loan as well. I think it is a loan. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Facundo Pellistri looking like he's going to be getting his chance on the Eredivisie, and I think all United fans would wish him the very best of luck. And hopefully he tears it up there and is able to kind of bring that form back at United. A loan does not mean you're done, and I'm hopeful with that with Mabry as well. There's going to be a lot of exits in the summer at United, and maybe they want to give these players minutes in preparation for coming back into the first team for the beginning of next season. I certainly hope so. So I'm really excited about this one. United in advanced negotiations to sign centre-back. So there he is. There's the young man himself, Scalvini. and a very good 20-year-old centre-half. Italian, I think he's an Italian international. He's already got about 9 caps. So United apparently are in very advanced negotiations to try and sign the Atalanta centre-back, Giorgio Scalvini. Now, of course, United have a good relationship with Atalanta, having bought Rasmus Højlund and even Amad Diallo from there. Was it Atalanta he came from, or Fiorentina? I think it was Atalanta, but apologies if I got that wrong. So according to French news outlet Le Bon Conseil du Sport, did I say that nicely? I hope so. Which has claimed the Italian could become the first signing of Sir Jim Ratcliffe at Old Trafford. And yeah, there could be lots of opportunities there. If that happens, that means we've got a centre-half on the way out. It could be Varane. Maybe it could be Lindelof. Could Maguire get his move in January? Who knows? So as a result of a never-ending injury crisis, Ten Hag has been forced to deploy a collection of different centre-back pairings. So Scalvini, right-footed, established himself as a regular fixture in Atalanta. He's made 22 appearances in all competitions, and only being 20, he's got 77 first-team appearances. So a fair whack of experience for a kid who's not even 21 yet. So as well as being a centre-back, he's able to step into midfield and be a bit more of a defensive midfielder as well, which is so often the case with good centre-halves. We've seen that with Lisandro Martinez as well when he was at Ajax. He can play as a defensive midfielder. So it's nice to have that flexibility when you want to give players a rest or when you've got some injury worries. So he's also got 7 senior caps for Italy. I thought it was 9. It's actually 7. And yeah, it looks like United are kind of really trying to ramp up this transfer. I'd be surprised for the kind of money. I think it's about 44 million. Could get the job done. But it looks like there's advanced negotiations. Now, whether these negotiations are advanced in like in preparation of a summer transfer, that could be the case. And if that is the case, I'm happy to see United get their business done early. But it'd be kind of exciting to get a kid of that caliber in January and just trying to shake things up a little bit for the second half of the season. God knows the team needs a bit of injection and excitement. So there's the young man, Giorgio Scalvini. Watch this space. Could happen in January, or maybe they're getting stuff prepped for summer, but it does look like those talks are quite advanced. And I've been doing a few episodes now over the last couple of weeks, and Scalvini's name has been ramping up more and more and more, so I'm pretty sure that's going to go ahead. We go to One Football now, and apparently Ineos, and there's a lot of outlets reporting on this as well. Ineos are going to go for David Gill. I mean, there's been so many names linked with sporting directors and directors of football and CEOs. And I mean, Jean-Claude Blanc is what I thought was going to be getting the CEO position. Maybe he's going to be director of marketing. Who knows? But it looks like Ineos are trying to get like this, you know, these 80s super bands. They're just trying to get the biggest and heavy hitters from across the footballing landscape. Apparently, Dan Ashworth is 100% the number one guy they want to bring in as sporting director. But it's proving difficult to get him out of Newcastle because the project he has there is it's pretty big in scope, and it looks like to be a very exciting project with a very deep set of pockets. But again, the allure of United might be too much, but who knows? So as we see here, according to later reports, Ineos might bring Sir Alex Ferguson, CEO. There he is, there talking with the old boy himself. And obviously they were a dynamite pairing at United, and it looks like United want to bring back that experience and a guy who essentially led the club, certainly from a business perspective, and working very well with the manager through its most successful and dominant period ever, even with those vampires at the helm. So David Gill is someone the Glazers are used to working with. I've no doubt that they would be absolutely delighted to get him back in their orbit. So fans have been clamoring for this outside investment. It appears the team has already made an impact on Old Trafford players and staff, according to The Athletic. A big article in The Athletic, I think it was Laurie Whitwell, released it, and going into all sorts of details about the takeover and what the leadership has been doing with the club. So Gill departed in 2013. He was the man who worked hand in hand with Sir Alex Ferguson, and it looks like Ineos are in, advanced talks with them to get him back into the club. I just don't know where he fits. You've got Paul Mitchell, Dan Ashworth, Jean-Claude Blanc, David Gill. I mean, you can't have too many chefs in the kitchen. You can't have that many alpha males maybe crossing into each other's territories. The Venn diagram, the circles overlapping. But Jesus, I'd love to see him back in the halls of Carrington and Old Trafford, because the guy knows what he's doing. It'd be good to have that kind of intelligence and success record at the club back. So yeah, we've gone on to the faithful MUFC website, but there's a few different articles going on this report. And it's saying United are looking to reinforce the defensive midfield options. Amadou Onana, a very closely linked. Also with Arsenal, there's a lot of Arsenal fan pages thinking that he's on the way to Arsenal as well. They've come in with a late bid to scupper United's interest. Real Madrid are looking at him as well, which is ridiculous. They've got, Tchouaméni and Camavinga, and they still got Kroos and Modric, and they don't need another defensive midfielder. And to be honest, either do Arsenal. They still got Declan Rice. They've still got Thomas Partey. Unless one of them is moving in the summer, obviously that would be Partey, in January. I don't see where there's room for Amadou Onana. Also, Everton do want Scott McTominay, so there is definitely a mutual thing there. Amadou Onana, I think he's a decent player. He's not showing me he's the next, Makelele or I just don't see it. He's not the SEN type that I would hope to see. The Roy Keane mold. I don't mean to keep talking about Chelsea defensive midfielders, but they have had a few good ones now over the while. So according to Football Transfers in the summer transfer window, United's priority defensive midfield target was Onana. So apparently it wasn't Amrabat, that the main target they wanted to bring in was Onana, but for one reason or another they couldn't get it done, probably because they could get Amrabat on a loan to buy. Remains to be seen what happens there, but Amrabat wasn't even featuring in the game against Wigan, like not even on the bench, or was he? But it's just kind of odd what's happened to Amrabat. He's just been completely left out in the cold after United were chasing him. Apparently he was a crucial signing. Well, it seems that he was the bridesmaid and not the bride. So the news source claims United have now moved in and started opening talks with Onana to try and get a deal done. It seems that this is a key signing, and the defensive midfielder for Belgium is one of the best play breakers in the Premier League. Is he? I don't know. He's decent, but is he, a game changer, a squad changer for United? I don't see it. I think he's quite capable, but is there better out there? Maybe. I think so. Especially for the 70, 90 million quid they're talking about. I mean, get the boat. Like, Onana is not worth 70 to 90 million quid. That's a joke. Now, he is young. He's 22. Maybe his best years, he's not even hit his peak yet. Not even close. He would be not bad value at that age, because you will get something for him if you want to get rid of him in 3 or 4 years' time. But again, as we've seen and as I mentioned in previous episodes, if you're being bought for 70 to 90 million and you're being gotten rid of 2 to 3 years later, something's wrong. Unless you're getting some mammoth fee from another club, the chances are it hasn't worked out and you're going to lose your ass on the transfer. So paying that kind of money is a massive risk. It has to work out or you're going to absolutely lose your ass. So yeah, it's talking about United going up against the Gunners, but they've gone on here to say the same thing. They've got Partey and Rice. There's no way that there's going to be room for Onana there. And with Everton also wanting McTominay, it does look like United are in the driving seat with this transfer. So let's see what happens. Watch this space. And finally, we've got Anthony Martial's time at Man United is almost up. Fenerbahce about to submit a £7 million offer for the United outcast. And again, it's just another move from Ineos trimming the fat. I mean, Sancho gone. They want these kind of underperforming, overpaid players gone. Casemiro being linked with a move away. Varane being linked with a move away. Martial, Sancho. I mean, to be honest, Rashford needs to be worried because they're 4 of the highest paid players, underperforming players that are just going to get axed. A lot of talk about Varane. He's either going to have to accept lower pay or he's gone. Casemiro, I can see Ineos getting rid of him immediately. 350 grand a week. The guy's missed 27 games since he's joined. 17 this season, and I think it was 7 or 8 last season between suspensions and a couple of injuries. So, and then when he has been playing, certainly this season, he has not been good. So 350 grand a week for that. Yeah, that's not going to fly with Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. So I'd say they're looking to get rid of all United's underperforming, very expensive players. Sancho's gone, Martial's gone, Varane, Casemiro, they're next. Rashford, you better look out, man, because the pattern doesn't look good. I think United have done well here. I mean, if United are set to get 7 million quid here, £7 million on the transfer, and they're going to be saving themselves £1 million a month. So this equates to about 12 to 13 million pounds, both in saved wages and a transfer fee for a player that you're going to lose in the summer who has really done very little this year and even last year. So to get 12 million quid for him when he's in the when he's got that injury record, such poor form, he's going to be able to go for free in 6 months. 12 million quid, it's better than nothing. So yeah, it looks like he's going to be going to Fenerbahce. Inter Milan were also interested in signing him up as well. And it looks like Fenerbahce put in a sizable enough bid of 7 million quid just to beat the buzzer and get ahead of Inter Milan and seal that deal. So poor El Anthony. Thanks for the memories. There was so much hope and potential, and you did give us some amazing games and amazing goals. Sorry it didn't work out, but he's on to bigger, well, maybe not bigger, but certainly better things for him with some first-team football in Turkey, and he can go out there and maybe make pals with Wilfried Zaha and all the other boys that have gone over to Galatasaray, if he's allowed to do that with that rivalry. But yeah, it's sad to see him go. I wish it didn't end like that, but it's time to go. We need to save some money on him. It's time to bring in new players. It's time to get rid of the old relics of failed dynasties. And yeah, it'll be sad to see him go. But Tony Marshall, good luck, sir. And that's it for the news today. So that's it for the headlines today. What do we make of that? Sad to wave bye-bye to Anthony Martial. I think that's what everyone wanted, but you know, I think we all think we wished it could have been so different. I mean, Rashford, Martial, and then Sancho. The idea of like such a young, talented trio, all of whom have just not done what we expected them to do. And Martial now gone, Sancho, the beginning of the end there. And, you know, is Rashford next? I, for one, hope so. I'm kind of done with Marcus Rashford, and I think it's time for that kid to go. And when you look at how underperforming, overpaid players have been handled by Ineos, while I don't think they're going to get rid of the darling of Manchester just yet, I think if the fan sentiment continues to go the way it has been going, the way it's been going with me for at least 4 years, I've been done with Rashford for a while, and I take no joy in I feel being vindicated in my opinions of the guy. I don't think there's going to be a place for Rashford at that club if he can't vastly improve what's happened this season. And even if he does, can you trust him to not do it again the following season? Even if he has a good season next season, you know that there just could be an awful season or two around the corner. You can't be paying 350 grand a week for that. So let's see what happens. The return of David Gill. What do people think about that? Is it too many cooks in the kitchen, or should he be the first guy in the door given his track record, success, standing within the game? I would love to see David Gill back at the club. Yeah, it's not old romanticism bringing back an ex-player as a manager. This is actually a very intelligent, astute man who had an incredible record of success in a position he can clearly just float back into. And he knows the club inside out, understands the power of the brand, understands the Glazers, and it would just make utter sense. So I hope to God that happens. Giorgio Scalvini, Serie A centre half, 20 years of age, Italy international, seems to be the next hot centre back coming out of Italy, and it looks like a deal is quite advanced between the clubs. So what does that mean for who might be leaving? Is Varane going to go to Saudi? What room is there going to be, or is that for the summer? It remains to be seen. And young Hansen-Aaroen, it'd be sad to see a kid with that much talent go, but if he did, I'd wish him the very best of luck. And it takes balls to leave a club like United to try and carve your path in a first team in another team in another league. And if it does happen, I wish him the very best of luck, and let's see. And Jadon Sancho, are we finally going to get that one over the line before the end of the week? It remains to be seen, but if it happens, be sure to know that I will be here to let you guys know all the details. As always, thank you very, very much for tuning in. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, hit the notification, and I'll see you on the next one.